Hey, this is Ted Cookerly, the washed-up former lead singer of Everyday Life. You're listening to the Rumors Are True podcast with Mr. Jaime Allen Gould. Stick around. You don't want to miss what's next.
Welcome, this is Jaime Allen Gould, and I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that the rumors you have all heard are true. I started this podcast to have a platform for the bands and artists that I've worked with in the past, as well as new musicians and artists that influenced myself and many others. The Rumors Are True podcast is an opportunity for the artists to tell their story their way. I'm still in the business of confirming rumors. I still love a good conversation, and I still freaking love music. So thanks again for joining me on this journey, and I hope you like what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true.
Can you feel the power? Listen up, I'm back on my feet. I finally broke loose and I've got something to say. Hey, are you doing the things that hurt you? Let me tell you there's a better way. Yeah, yeah. Plus he came down from his throne and sang a song of love to me. With just a touch his power set me free. I'm free. Tell me, can you feel it? Listen, I believe it. Talking about the power of love. Burning like a fever in the hearts of true believers. Oh, we've got the power of love. Come on. Can you feel the power of My heart is in silent lament into the abyss, emotional imprisonment. My heart breaks, the pieces fall into the abyss. I can't escape the darkness at all. I can't take the madness anymore. Melancholy mind, poison in my hope tonight. The demons in my head, raging one side. As it haunts my soul. Colors fading into gray, into a dark and empty haze. Searching for a light, I don't wanna be a memory. I just wanna kill the pain. The pain inside of me.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I welcome the legend Jaime Rowe. You know Jaime from the bands Guardian and Kalamity Kills. So honored to have Jaime on this podcast. I've been a Guardian fan since I was a kid, so it was really cool to hear his perspective on the past, the present, of course, his future. So I hope you enjoy this latest episode with Jaime Rowe.
Starry sky. Does anybody care that I'm alive?
Jaime Rowe, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, man.
Glad to be here. Good morning. Sorry I almost made it late for you this morning, but
Dude, you're good.
here I am. So I don't look as pretty as I probably would have in an hour, but that's
Dude,
okay.
you look fine. No, I'm super honored to have you on, man. I'm really grateful. I've been a Guardian fan since I was in my teens. Got to see you guys with Steve Taylor.
Oh, right on.
And Hocus Pick tour. Yeah, man, been a big fan Fire and Love, Miracle Mile, all that stuff is just really nostalgic for me. So I just, again, super honored to have you on. So thank you again for that, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Really happy to do it. Happy to do it, brother.
Awesome, man. Well, let's talk what's going on in your world. Let's talk about what's current in your world.
Currently in my world is, obviously I've still decided to make music after putting it down for a while. But I started a project a couple of years ago. It was start off as a solo project called Kalamity Kills. And the reason it's a band project now is because when I was making the record, it just midway through I realized this doesn't sound like solo music. It sounds like band music. And then I was really working with Jamie Perina, who had played on the Last Guardian record with us. And I realized he was really like a key component to the contribution. I was like, dude, let's just make this our project, not just my project, but our project. So right before we mixed the record, we decided to make it a 50-50 Kalamity Kills deal between he and I. And so we released that record and it's done really well. It got over 1 million streams on Spotify last year.
Amazing.
We've had two singles off of it last year. The Chemistry of Meant to Be went to number 42 on Billboard. And we actually, as of last week on the published media-based charts, we broke the top 40 again with our new song Starry Skies with Aaron from Under Oath. So we've had two radio hits in an era where unsigned bands don't get in the top 40. And so we're really thankful for that, and it's been really exciting. And I even looked at the Billboard chart today. We're at 41 on this week's Billboard, so chances are next week we'll have a top 40 on there too. So it's just nuts. It's unheard of. It really is, and especially at my point in my career, because nobody knows my history in that realm and everything. They just, maybe some people, okay, I remember, I heard of this Christian band Guardian, but it's kind of like, unless you followed Christian music, you didn't really know Guardian per se. So to get a fair shot at 54 years old in mainstream rock is kind of crazy. Yeah, and I'll take it. So far so good.
That's awesome, man. Where you living in the Nashville area?
I'm in Columbia, Tennessee right now.
Oh, nice. That's a great area.
Yeah, we love it.
I got a buddy who does custom tobacco pipes that lives there. He's incredible. Oh, really? Yeah, he's a badass.
It's not Jody Davis, is it?
Nobody works with him. No, his name's Micah Redman. But I think he worked with Jody, and he worked with one of the guys from Sanctus Real, I think, for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they had like a pipe company or something like that. And he works down that way. But yeah, it's a beautiful area.
People don't know this, but I've known Jody since I was like 10 years old.
That's so cool.
So we came from the same area in Indiana. So
that's amazing, man. That's crazy. Awesome, man. Well, let's talk about, speaking of growing up, what it was like for you in terms of how music kind of came into your life, maybe some bands, some records, shows that kind of pushed you in the direction you went in. I will try to keep this to the point and short as best I can, but I tend to wander. But dude, really, for me, there are a few bands, that are definitive to me. And one, I loved Kiss. And here's the thing. As I get older, I still love Kiss, but it's not necessarily because of the music. To me, they were just an extension of Spider-Man, Superman, Green Lantern. Sure. They were, comic stars that actually happen to play music. So I still have a nostalgic connection for all that. But the band that made me love music was Cheap Trick. Yes, it's easily to this day, they're still my absolute all-time favorite band. And they made me, Kiss got me interested in music. Cheap Trick made me love music. And then my mom had ordered a Kenny Rogers record from the Columbia House Record Club and got the number wrong. And so off a digit or something like that, and they sent the record and it was Van Halen 2. Dude. And we kept it. So that probably wouldn't have shown up on my radar 78, 79 around that era. And we kept it. And so that was really definitive. So I'd say in the 70s, listening to music as a preteen in the 70s, Cheap Trick, Kiss, Aerosmith, and Van Halen was probably it. And then as I got older, I still musically, here's a major influence for me that people don't hear is, and people may even chuckle at it, is Third Eye Blind. I love that band.
I really love Third Eye Blind. I like the vocal phrasing, the songwriting.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
But I've never recorded any music that kind of sounds like that. But you got to understand that's a deep influence for me.
Absolutely. Now you saying that, I can see that kind of in your vocal delivery, and kind of, he's one of those type of people. When he writes a song, it's just it's all about the delivery for him, and and the depth of the lyrics and stuff. So that's cool. That's awesome to hear that. Big fan here as well. Let's talk about your musical history. Obviously started off with Tempest, and wound up joining one of your favorite bands, Guardian. Bring me through joining Guardian, and kind of how that came too.
Man, it was cool. There was a magazine, it was a fanzine called The Pendragon. This guy, Jeffrey McCormick, had, and he was interviewing me with my first band, and said at the end of the interview, he goes, "Hey, I actually just interviewed this band Guardian." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I just read about them. Oz Fox is producing a record, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Let me give you the guy's number." Turns out it was Tony Palacios. He goes, I think you guys would connect, or however he put it. And I said, "Cool." So I actually got the phone number of Tony Palacios and cold called him. And I was a 17 or 18-year-old kid. Actually, I was 17 at the time in Indiana, who has no exposure to anything, in the music world. And I knew that they were signed to Enigma Records. And at that point in my life, I thought that people signed bands like that were famous and rock stars. And so I called up Tony and said, "Hey man, don't hang up. I'm a fan. I just wanted to talk to you." And Tony's like, "What are you talking about, man?" and the story goes, Tony and I, would talk. I would send him the Tempest stuff, and he would send me Guardian demos, and we just became friends over the course of a couple of months. And then one time he called. I went to a Christmas party a couple days before Christmas, and he called me, and I didn't get the message, and he left it with my dad. And it turns out my dad died the next morning.
Oh my gosh.
And so Tony he called a week later, says, "Dude, you usually call me back within hours and everything. I haven't heard from him. Everything good?" And I was like, "Dude, my dad died." And now here's the cool side of all this, and why I think this was a God orchestrated thing. None of my friends that I knew had lost a parent. So nobody I knew had that experience. But Tony had lost his mother when he was 12.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, beyond music, I had this guy that understood my experience and decided, "Yeah, man, I'm going to help you." He wrote me I still got a letter somewhere here that he wrote me that was really cool. And that's just awesome. People think of, Tony Palacios as this great guitar player, but in 1987, in early 88, Tony Palacios was a good, decent human being that cared about some punk kid in the Midwest, and
that's
helped
cool.
help me work through the grief.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. What a crazy story.
But then, dude, I can tell you, so then flash forward a year later, I found out that Guardian, at first I'd heard they'd broken up, and then I found out, well, no, they're looking for a singer. And so I called Tony and said, "Hey man, I hear you're looking for a singer." He goes, "I'd like to audition." He goes, "Oh, okay, man, I know what you sound like." And see, he did not like my first band at all. He actually he just didn't think anything of it. So, and he's like, "We're kind of looking for a David Coverdale kind of bluesy, kind of thing." I said, "Dude, that's me. I can totally do that," and everything. And not realizing the last time he'd heard me that I'd aged a year, had gotten a bunch of experience under my belt, and so he goes, "All right, man, just go into the studio, set up a microphone, and just sing. We just want to hear your voice." And I said, "Okay. Not a problem." And so I did it, and found out later that was what they had asked everybody to do. And people were like, "With no music? What?" I was dumb enough to say, "Yeah, okay, cool, I'll do it." And so I did. And I can even remember the lyrics. I can sing it. Hopefully I don't distort my mic, but I went "Ooh, yeah, yeah," something like that.
Yeah.
I put it on a tape and sent it to him. And I overnighted it to him. And I think on the 6th day, his wife told him, "Federal Express has been calling. If you don't come and pick this up tomorrow, they're going to send it back. And Jamie has been calling you every single day."
Wow.
But he didn't want to pick it up because he knew it was going to be bad and he didn't want to hurt my feelings. And so he picked it up, and he was going to Pachyderm Studios. He popped it in and heard the a cappella stuff. And goes, "This is our guy."
Wow.
That was it. So, and
how did that make you feel? How'd that make you feel?
It made me feel really good. The only problem with the whole experience was, I'd cut my hair fairly short, maybe Dutch boy length right before I auditioned. And as you know, the time period in 1990,
Sure.
being the hairband thing, his image was still like 90% of it half the time. So, and it was kind of curish purple, kind of purplish thing. I probably looked ridiculous. Well, I know I did. But Tony said when I got off the plane, he said he's like excited, and he said his heart kind of sunk because the way I looked.
Oh,
And everything. So this is actually this is the harsh reality. The only resistance I got from joining the band was because of my image at the time, because I was probably about 25 pounds overweight, and I didn't have long hair.
wow.
And so I actually wore extensions for the first year of the Fire and Love tour. I had hair extensions weaved in. And then actually for the Fire and Love album cover, that's a wig we rented because my hair had not grown out that long. So get this. So there's a wig store in Santa Ana, California that we rented that wig and then took it back. So, you know what I mean? So somebody else has my hair from that record.
That's hysterical.
But that just shows you at the time period, that was key. That was every bit as important as the music.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, but I remember, people like John and Dino Elefante is like, they're like, dude, I don't care what he looks like and stuff. He can always grow his hair and everything like that because he's one of the best singers we've ever had here.
That's amazing.
And so I appreciate
how validating.
that.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
It was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the best thing that's validating in all of that is just to know that the messages and things I still get today. I just know that like what we did went a little deeper than just 3 chords in your eardrums, and I appreciate that. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, man. Let's talk about the Fire and Love record. You kind of mentioned it. That's probably the first time I heard you guys. I think I heard you guys on a comp or something, and that's kind of what, in that time frame. Yeah, bring me through that record, your thoughts, memories, looking back on recording that record.
Man, I can tell you all sorts of stuff. I can tell you this. The very first song I ever recorded for that record was the song Turnaround. So that was the first vocal that I did for that record, and I remember getting a rough mix and then sending it to my best friend in Indiana where I'd moved away from, like, you got to hear this, you know what I mean? And then getting scolded, like, dude, you don't send out roughs,
Yeah.
It's a different game here. But I did that. I remember singing, the Power of Love song. When I auditioned for Guardian, Tony said, hey, I've got some ideas. Just, see what you can come up with. Here we hear. And we basically wrote Power of Love and The Rain in my audition night and stuff. Tony had the music bed going, but I remember he said he was playing the Power of Love, and I just sang literally the first thing that came out of my mouth was, tell me, can you feel it? Yes, and I believe it, talking about the power of love. And Tony's like, stop. Let me get a recorder. And everything, and those words became the song. I'll tell you what's funny, and I've never told the story, but I started thinking about that. That might be interesting to people. If you listen to Power of Love, where it comes up, it goes, listen up, I'm back on my feet, I finally broke loose. Okay, when I went to record that in the studio, that wasn't the phrasing, and Dave and Tony were out in the lobby. He's like, dude, we got to come up with something different. Originally, it just went, whoa, yeah, I got something to say. Are you doing the thing? And he's like, no, we want this hype thing. Like, listen up, I'm back up. And I'm so thankful they did that, because when I first heard it, I was like, I didn't like it. And now it's like, dude, I can't imagine it.
That's crazy.
But,
that's awesome.
Man, it was cool. We just making the record and just bonding with the Elefantes. And still to this day, they're really close friends, and their family. Yeah. And it was just a really good experience for me. And then obviously, being a Cheap Trick fan growing up, knowing they were on Epic Records, knowing that the record actually came out through Epic as well. Wow. It just it was a full circle moment for me.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Man. That's so cool. Yeah. What when you guys were writing it, did you feel like you had something special?
No, I don't know if we ever said that, but I always knew it. Like I said, I'm a music fan first, and it's not beyond me to be a fan of my own music, you know what I mean? So it's like I was listening thinking, this is something I want to listen to. So I always felt that we had something. Now here's what's going to be bizarre. I was scared before we released Miracle Mile, which went on to be our biggest, landmark recording, so to speak. I was scared that we traded hooks, pop sounding hooks, for riffs. And I was scared that people wouldn't respond to that. But boy, I was glad to be wrong, man.
Yeah.
I remember saying it to Tony, and Tony kind of said the same thing. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? But you you can't judge. You can't really tell what people are going to like and what they're not going to. You just got to do what you got to do.
Exactly.
But it's like, I still, if I have to pop on a Guardian record, I will pop on Fire and Love before I pop on anything else.
Yeah, dude.
I will.
Absolutely, man. What were the Elefantes stoked on it? Were they pumped on it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were signed to their label and we were their flagship band, so it's kind of like they really, and Donna Del Sesto, who was David Del Sesto was the president of the label, and his wife Donna did radio and promotions. I mean, she got us so much radio love through over the years and stuff. They really loved us and saw what we were trying to do and got behind us, and they were truly supportive.
That's awesome.
It's good.
That's cool. Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's cool now when you're living at the time. Like I said, I was young and 20. You always want more and more and more. Like, okay, cool. We've got a number one single. Well, the next song is going to number one. You don't consciously. Yeah. But in the back of your mind, it is. And I just look back and it's like, man, what a great time to that thing. We got to walk in so many areas that we didn't, in my mind, deserve to be. I mean, it's like, why us and not another band? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think about that stuff, and I'm really grateful and thankful for that.
In that time frame, were you guys playing with any like the secular bands, or was it only Christian? And did you get any sort of like respect from the secular bands?
Man, I can tell you one thing. It's funny, when we would play with mainstream bands, it was usually in the club shows that we would do to promote the Epic side, and it was usually local like mainstream bands opening in that case. But one time we opened for this band called Rhino Bucket. I don't know if you remember them. They were on the Bill and Ted soundtrack, cool. I can't remember, but anyway, their drummer was Simon, I forget. I think his name is Simon or something. It was in AC/DC for a bit, and anyway, the guitar player for Rhino Bucket now he's produced like the last two Metallica records.
Wow,
dude, we got up there and we had a really great show. The promoter had become a Christian and just decided, I want to put this Christian band on this show with Rhino Bucket, and so we did. Dude, and I remember we played a really great show, went over really well. I remember standing off the side of the stage watching Rhino Bucket, and they go and they play their song, and the singer looks directly over at Dave and I off to the side. He goes, "There's too many straight people in this GD world." He goes, "Tonight we're going to get effed up and drink like fish, and this is a song about sex on the road." So it was literally, he was like torched that this Christian band had a great show before. So that was interesting. But it's funny. I found out later stuff like there were people that were turned on to Guardian that I never knew would listen. Like Snake Sabo from Skid Row. That he knew Guardian, man. Somebody gave him Miracle Mile or something in Japan or something. He said. And and there was other bands that were on Epic like Danger that knew about us and everything like that. So we had some cool experiences. But it's funny, I always really wanted to do it. Like my heart has always been to play in the mainstream and be on mainstream America and stuff like that. So anytime we got those opportunities back in the day, like to be on Headbangers Ball on MTV, that was always a huge deal for me, man.
Absolutely.
So I embrace those moments.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, dude. Well, you mentioned Miracle Mile. Let's talk about that record. Definitely a change in direction somewhat in terms of, like you said, more of the riffs, less of the hooks. Still the hooks, of course. This record's fantastic, by the way. I love Fire and Love as well. Just want to
I get
as well. Miracle Mile. Bring me through recording that record. What was it like for you guys? Bring me back to that time.
Well, I remember the coolest thing about that record was that was a record we recorded, and then we went away for a tour for like a month, and then came back and mixed it. So we had a little bit of a break, but give me a second. I'm with Midwest allergies. We came back from tour and mixed it, and I remember that record. What was great about it was really thought through, and even though there's no direct correlation, when we were touring, we would listen to the Extreme record, 3 sides to every story, and always loved how that felt like a theme running through the whole record, even though it's never really pronounced, except for maybe like the last 3 tracks where they're kind of like it's like a longer.
Sure.
It's like a song in 3 acts, so to speak. And we really loved that, and we wanted to apply that concept to Miracle Mile. And Dave David come up with the cover concept and really went above and beyond for the time period. And we just decided, to pull out all the stops and everything. So, me growing up as a Kiss fan, I loved it when, you open Kiss Alive and you got the poster, you got the tattoos. And so, we did a little something on our own version of that. We did the trading cards, we did the calendars and things like that. So it was really a cool time. It was an event. And I just remember, not knowing what to expect. But I'll tell you a personal story. Whenever I came in singing, I think Dr. Jones was the first song I sang, if I remember. And I remember like a couple lines into it, coming from Fire and Love, being my first record with the Elefantes, to Miracle Mile. And John said, he goes, last record you were walking, now you're running, brother. You know what I mean? So
that's amazing.
I appreciate that. And John John's the ultimate vocalist. So to get a compliment from him, just rocks my world. But we made that record, and I remember, actually, hold on, let me think. There was something really key I wanted to say, and you probably have to edit this. Something about it with the cover, and man, I totally lost my train of thought. I can't remember.
It's all good. It's okay. No worries. Let me ask you this. Obviously, was there? You said you thought this record out pretty far and wide.
Yes.
Was it basically, hey, I want to be more groove oriented, or was it more like? Is that what you were listening to? The influences? Is that kind of what did that?
No, man. I literally, it came about very much the same way that Fire and Love did. Is like Tony. The bulk of the music for that record was written by Tony Palacios, with the exception of something weird like Carl Ney wrote the riffs and stuff on Shoe Shine Johnny. And how that happened. Carl's a drummer, he's a keyboard player, he's not a guitar player, but he came in and told Tony, he was driving to rehearsal, he goes, I had this idea for a song, goes da-na-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na-na, and Tony played it on guitar, and it's just kind of crazy. And that became a big song for us. You know?
Yeah.
And and personally, I'd written the song "You and I." Yeah. Like you and I, we belong together. And I actually think that song could have fit on Fire and Love pretty well.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely.
But it's just funny. Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. Is there was a little bit of not being sure how people were going to respond, and then we heard reports from our sales rep that there were people going in like in a bookstore in Texas and buying like 20 copies of the record to give away to people.
Wow.
That's how much people, it was insane. We had it was in Christian music at a time that was ruled by, the Michael W. Smiths and Amy Grants. We had a top 5 Billboard album release on a Christian general chart. And it's just like, it's like, where did this come from? And to be fair, a big promotional aspect of that came from Tony Palacios playing on the Michael W. Smith tour, which put him in, the long hair guy was in front of a packed arena every night. And all these pop fans like, who's this guy? And then, a month later, they walk into Zondervan or whatever family stores and see a cutout display of Guardian with Tony. We recognize that guy. So I think that really, the synergy of all that really helped.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. How many records did that sell overall? Do you remember?
Depends on who you ask. If it depends on the people who have to pay us, probably 100,000. If you look at actual copies in the wild and stuff, I'd say it sold well over 200,000.
That's amazing.
And you want to know amazing? We're a multi-platinum band with our Spanish records in Latin America.
I believe it.
But we've been paid for 14,000 units.
Wow.
So that's just because it's basically a bootleg market for the most part, and it's never bothered us because music was meant to be heard, and a lot of those people don't have a lot of money. So if they can get the record and it brings them joy, and then we get to come play concerts and meet people, so it's still a success, man.
That's awesome, though.
Somebody's keeping the money, and it's not Jaime Rowe. I'll tell you that. How do
you looking back on that record? How do you feel about it?
Which one?
Oh, sorry, Miracle Mile.
Miracle Mile. I love it. It's funny. I think, and I feel silly saying this because I'm part of the band, but like the record cover is iconic to me. That's a time period. That's a defining, moment and stuff. I think about that and other music that was around at the same time. Obviously, let's put it this way. I'm 35 years beyond that, or I guess something like that. I could probably announce a concert where I'm playing, hey, I'm going to play Miracle Mile from top to bottom live. and I would probably have a decent turnout, you know, and that's pretty well. That's not something I ever considered doing, but I probably would, because that's what I'm saying. It connected deeply with people, and from everything, you know, from the acoustic songs to like Sweet Mystery and The Captain, things that not necessarily bands were doing at that time, you know, to a pop song like You and I, to, you know, a pretty ferocious, you know, all hell breaks loose vocal on Mr. Do Wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's got some pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome. Do you feel like the success of the record opened it up for you guys mainstream wise, or I mean, is that
I actually think mainstream wise, I think we got more success from Fire and Love, because that's what I'm saying, with the MTV push and everything like that, and you know, we didn't get any other videos on MTV. Actually, it's funny, if the Shoeshine Johnny video, Sony got it, and this was 1993, and you know, the song is about this black housekeeper that David Bach had in his household base growing up, kind of like his dad worked in the Pentagon or something, and they had a black, that was always just filled with joy, and there was kind of the inspiration lyrically. It was actually a woman, but he infused the lyric with about Shoeshine Johnny. And I remember there's this guy Dan Beck at Epic, who's a major player. He felt like the video was racist because the guy was tap dancing in the video. And this is way before cancel culture, so they didn't submit it to MTV or anything, and we didn't get any more MTV play until Alternative Nation in Latin America picked up the Bottle Rocket video. Like, that was it. So
that's crazy. But
we got, I mean, they did hired concrete marketing. We got a lot of decent mainstream press for Fire and Love, but we never really got a fair shake in the mainstream for Miracle Mile, other than the fact is it came out on Epic and not Word Epic. So when people went to the store, it looked like an Epic release. But at the same time, in their realm, that was the same time that Pearl Jam was a priority for the label. And, you know, I remember talking to this guy, Mike Schnapp at Epic, who's a radio promoter, and he's like, man, he goes, just things have changed. He goes, you know, I got Stephen Pearcy on this label. He had a band Arcade at the time. He goes, that guy's been around. He goes, I can't get anybody to play him. And everything. He's like, the music's just changed, but he goes, he can send him a Pearl Jam record and they'll play it. So things changed that radically at the time. And
how did that make you guys feel at that time? I mean, the landscape of music changing.
Dude, I took it a little hard, you know, because I'm almost 10 years younger than everybody else in Guardian, and so I remember later on, like around the Bottle Rocket record, I remember playing festivals where a few years prior, you know, we were the main attraction, so to speak. Sure. And then back playing on a side stage with like tooth and nail bands and everything, and really it's weird to feel unhip and cool at 27 years old. You know what I mean?
No, I get it.
You realize the stuff, and it just, you know, things have definitely changed. And you said you want to talk about it. Maybe you want to talk about it in the future, but you know, something in hindsight we did that I really think saved us, that kind of killed our peers in a lot of ways, is we didn't follow up Miracle Mile with another hard rock record.
Yeah.
We did Swing, Swang, Swung, which was originally supposed to be an acoustic EP of like 5 songs.
Okay.
And it was going to be like Guardian acoustic songs, like Time Stands Still and things like that, like done acoustically. But we got in the studio and things kind of got a little out of hand, and just realized, okay, hey, this is more than just an EP. Let's make this a record. Let's do 10 songs. And at the time, and it's no secret within the band, dude, I did not like the record at all. Really? I literally thought it was going to be the death of Guardian. You know, like I said, I'm 10 years younger, and that just, you know, mellow music at that age to me was not really appealing. And I thought it was, you know, going to be the death of Guardian. In hindsight, I'm so glad we did that record.
Yeah.
Because one, as I get older, now I have an appreciation for it. I think there's some really great songwriting on it, especially. Like the Sun is just a fantastic song. I love that song. But if we would have made another hard rock record, we probably would have, you know, just fizzled out like everybody else does.
Wow.
But it sustained us and gave us, oh, hold on, unplug my headphones. It sustained us and was able to make a bridge to like the Buzz and Bottle Rocket records, which actually kept us alive. You know what I mean? Where, you know, I hate to mention a name, like, but we were playing on tours and shows like bands like White Cross.
Yeah.
Like wasn't getting on because they were considered completely passé at that point. You know what I mean? But for some reason we weren't, because we adapted and changed our sound a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy time, but man, I literally like hated the Swing Swang Swung record, and even to this day, when people say, "Oh, it's my favorite record," my first thought is, "Gosh, I hated it so bad when it came out." But like I said, now I have an appreciation for it, like completely.
I'm going to ask you this, and if you don't want to answer, it's fine. In that time, you said you weren't into it. Did that bring any sort of tension in the record?
Oh, yeah.
And did it come out in the music, you think?
No, it came out after the record. I remember getting in an argument with the guys. We're on a Steve Taylor tour, and I finally said, "I don't like the record, guys. I'm sorry," and everything. But it was a funny thing. I actually had some vocal issues right before we did the Swing Swang Swung record, where I lost my voice for like 3 months. And it turns out I was having food allergies and singing on those night after night, not realizing it. And so it was basically your vocal cords flop like this. Well, this side got really strong, and so this side stopped working. So I literally went to sound check one day and could literally speak no louder than this.
Wow.
And so we did and we even did this, we still had to do the show. It was kind of crazy. But there was a point there where I was sitting there thinking, okay, I may not sing again. And so at that point you start thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I'm 24 years old. I've basically done nothing but music since I was like 17 to 20 years old. What am I going to do? And then my voice came back, and actually, the Vanderbilt Voice Center did a wonderful job diagnosing me. And what fixed it was avoiding certain foods and vocal lessons. Yeah. So vocal lessons, how to properly sing and use more of your head voice and stuff and keep it out of your throat. But that whole time period was pretty crazy. But I think there was some frustrations with me throughout the entire Guardian period. There were always times where like, man, I should just split. It's so funny. That's the furthest thing in my mind I ever would want to do. But I would get, I'm not going to say in my 20s I was the most emotionally stable guy in the world.
I know. I get it.
But yeah, there were plenty of times. I mean, I remember being in the pre-production session for the Bottle Rocket record with Steve Taylor and a guy at our record label. And he said, we went through and we played some of the songs. He goes, I think these songs should be the core of the record. And like all of my songs and stuff like were off. They were like more Soundgarden-ish type songs that were rippy and stuff. And mine was more pop focused. And finally, I remember Steve was like, well, why don't you like it? He goes, these songs are great but you guys are 30-year-old men. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm 27, 26 at the time. And he goes, it doesn't make sense to you to play pop type music. And I remember looking over at Jim Chafee, the president of Myrrh, and I said, well, can I do a solo record? And everything. And I meant it. And because he saw frustration. I just remember Jim, who's a dear friend and just was really good at the band, just making eye contact, staring at me, like literally locked for like 45 seconds. Like, are you serious?
Wow.
And like, he'd never thought about that. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, what's funny is Steve ended up after that meeting, went back and repicked my songs anyway. So it all worked out.
That's awesome, man. But, I love hearing that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just say you mentioned obviously Swing Swang Swung wound up kind of being a godsend for you guys as a band. Did you obviously hit the road with that? Like, how was the touring for that? Was it awesome? We toured a lot. That tour was great because we actually did the Steve Taylor tour, and that's how we got to know Steve. Yeah.
And I forget what that was. That was Dakota Motor Company. Remember them, that band?
Yeah.
Okay, they were originally going to be on the tour, and like literally like 2 weeks before or something, had to bow out because Peter had gotten that gig on Sandblast on MTV and was going to be the host. So we were our last minute replacement. And what's funny is all those guys in Steve Taylor's band became really close to us. To this day, we're all still close people, like Mark Townsend and whatnot. And I remember hearing him say, oh my gosh, because we shared a bus. I remember hearing him say, we got some metal band that's going to be on the bus with us and everything like that. Just kind of judging what we'd be all about. And, we just had the best time. So
that's so cool.
We toured a lot for that record, and we toured a lot internationally. I remember we were in England when we asked Steve, hey, would you consider producing our next record? You know what I mean?
Wow.
On that tour. So
that's awesome. So after that, you obviously start to work on, is it the Buzz record next?
Yes.
Let's talk about the Buzz record. Obviously a shift in music as well. I mean, obviously the time we mentioned kind of the landscape of music changing. Is that influencing this record? And kind of bring me through recording that record.
No, definitely the landscape of music is changing. And by this time, it's like I don't live in a bubble, and I've always just been a music fan. So I'm listening to stuff like Social Distortion and not just Warrant. Even though I didn't give up on my beloved Warrant, I would still listen to like Social Distortion, and I like I said, discovering Third Eye Blind and Smashing Pumpkins, things like that. Bands that I still enjoy to this day.
Sure.
But I told you, because of my vocal issues and stuff, I didn't do a lot of writing for the Swing Swing Swung record, and I remember making a commitment: I'm never going to go into a record and not be prepared for songs again. So I went and got a 4-track recorder, and I wrote a bunch of songs that ended up on the Buzz record, like musically. Wow. And the thing, it was kind of cool. And this is not a shot against John and Dino, but they knew me as the singer coming in and not really the songwriter coming in.
Yeah.
And, and I'm a real basic musician. Like if I were to play you a song, it's not going to have a lot of fancy chords. It's not going to be, mentally engaging. It's going to be almost mindless, but memorable.
Sure.
And John and Dino, I don't think would really, see me as a writer. So all of a sudden, Steve Taylor, I would play these ideas that would normally be like, what is this? He goes, oh, I get that.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, so for me, it was validating because Steve understood me as a songwriter and was really encouraging. Yeah. And it's funny, I'm the only vocalist alive that writes the music and stuff like that really has a hard time with lyrics and stuff like that. I always write the lyrics last, and if somebody else is in the room that can do it better, I'll gladly hand it off to them. You know what I mean? Still to this date, I'm that way.
Yeah.
But no, Steve was very encouraging me as a writer because he got it, because he would listen to a British band like Suede and stuff and get, that simplicity and stuff that I have. And, Oasis was blowing up at the time and I was addicted. And it's no secret, dude. Our song Revelation off, Buzz, that's a pretty it's a pretty good nod to What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Great great song.
Yeah, that's
awesome, man. At the time, did you feel like you had to change the style, or was to stay, or was it, or did you still kind of want to be who you were?
It was both, and so because that's the thing, like all of us in Guardian, like we never pledged allegiance to a genre. We were all music fans. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we were, if something new came in, it would excite us. I remember, people, on tour thinking, we're probably listening to Winger or something like that. We were listening, we were listening to this band, The Grays. It was an offshoot from Jellyfish. We were listening to Journey. We were listening to all the stuff that, Seal. Yeah. We listened to a lot of Seal over the years, Gin Blossoms. Great band. People would think, you're not listening to Poison and Winger? Like, no, it's just, we like music. We did not like that stuff. It's just,
yeah,
we were music fans first, and but the change though was definitely, I realized, I saw what happened to our peers and how if they didn't adapt, what happened to them, and then you could look in the mainstream and see the same thing happening. So it was aware, but it wasn't more like, oh man, I've got to change. It's like it was more of like, oh man, cool, I get to embrace this new thing and see how I can incorporate it into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And like I said, for me, it was exciting because I'm a simple songwriter, and songwriting was getting a little more simple. It was a lot less riffy and more like chord based. And when I found Third Eye Blind and Radiohead, the Benz record was
great record.
There's a song called Babylon on the Buzz, and that was Bottle Rocket record. Like, what was the crack I made? I wrote the music on that and the melody, and that is completely influenced by that record, Radiohead, the Benz.
That's one of my favorite records. Yeah. It's amazing. That's cool to hear that. Like, it's interesting, not that I would think you would just listen to Winger or Trickster or what are those bands, but it's cool to hear, hey, Radiohead had an influence or Oasis had an influence.
Oh yeah.
And now,
the Posies, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing that. Well, looking back on the Buzz record, how do you feel about it?
I love it. I think it's great. A lot of people don't realize this too. The guy who mixed it, Rick, actually mixed like all the Incubus records and everything.
Oh, cool.
So it's like, it was cool, but I love that record. To me, it's the band live for the most part, except vocally, but that's the band actually setting up in a room and playing. And I love it. I think it has a unique sound. I don't think it sounds like anything else at the time. And that comes from, having Steve Taylor produce hard rock, which he's not necessarily in his wheelhouse, and just having a different viewpoint of it. And it's like the guitar sounds are like psychedelic Runaway and everything like that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of things that sound like that.
Yeah, man. Steve Taylor's prolific too, and he's, I'm sure that was an incredible experience, and probably direct opposite of what the Elefantes were in terms of just vision and stuff. But
it's a different style, but it's funny though, man. Here we are 35 years later and stuff, people still love those Elefante records. So they did something right. You know what I mean?
No, they were incredible. Mastodon and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely, man. That wasn't a slight to them by any means. It was just more like two different world viewpoints in terms of like, one's off in this world and the other two are off in this world, but they're both equally incredible. Awesome. That's so cool to hear. I've always loved Steve Taylor and the Elefantes.
I just got to say this, Steve Taylor as a person inspired me greatly too. So he truly, if you wanted somebody who wears the badge of Christ publicly, he does privately, and it's like I always said, if Christian music ever had to have an ambassador, it should be Steve Taylor.
I love that.
He's really the real deal, and he's compassionate, he's graceful, and he's one of those guys I've never heard him say something bad about somebody.
That's amazing.
Ever.
And he's a definition of an artist.
Truly.
Just overall.
Truly.
So, I love hearing that, man. That's awesome. Well, let's. The next record's Bottle Rocket. Bring me through that. Kind of the end of the band per se after this. So kind of bring me through this recording and kind of your thoughts on it, looking back on it, and we'll go from there.
Man, Bottle Rocket. It's funny. I actually love a lot of the stuff on that record. To be fair, I don't love the sonics of that record like I do Buzz. But what's funny is I think you hear things like in the song, like "Are We Feeling Comfortable Yet?" You hear the riffs and stuff in that like that. You almost hear a little bit of like the Rob Zombie kind of almost like sound I'm dabbling with Calamity Kills now. You can kind of hear hints of that already back then. That and Blue Light Special. But there's songs like What Does It Take and My Queen Esther that I think are just great songs. And, our audience was very divided. I still meet people today that like, Buzz and Bottle Rocket are where they discovered Guardian. They love Guardian.
Wow.
Then there's the equal part that, Fire and Miracle, I hate everything after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's always weird just to see that division of people, but I'm thankful because, like I said, we were able to sustain a career. Typically, a rock band's career tends to last about 5 years, and we were able to stretch ours into a little over 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'm thankful for that, and changing and being aware and just adapting and just like I said, allowing ourselves to be creative, really paid off. But I can tell you, when we made the record, I was really kind of disappointed because it seems like we'd hit a ceiling that we couldn't break 75,000 records on.
Wow.
On like they were going to go down like Swing sold like 90,000. Buzz sold 75, and I started thinking this is going to sell another 75,000 records, and that's going to be it. We hit a ceiling. Yeah. And I remember having a negative feeling about that. And to this day, I still have no idea how many it sold, but it was the most expensive record we made for sure.
Wow.
And that was cool. And it was a really good time, but it was disheartening though. Like I said, when you start playing the festivals and you start getting regulated to the side stage and just realizing, it's like a lot of the kids leave and a lot of the adults show up and the crowd looks radically different from one band to the next. And so you realize, okay, it's people, we may have had our season, but here's the thing, man. And at that point too, we'd been so focused on Latin America. Like we were playing, 500 people in Albuquerque here in the U.S. if we were lucky, but we could go play a 7,500 seat arena in Latin America.
Unbelievable.
And so we got really focused. The few Spanish translation records we did, we just kind of embraced that. So by doing that, we kind of disappeared from the U.S. So our demise there was kind of inevitable. But I remember, gosh, it was around 98, 99. I remember David had taken a job with Forefront Records as an A&R band and gotten off the road, and we were just kind of we were together, but it just wasn't the same. I remember sitting in an airport and Tony and I were talking like, I wonder if we should change the name of the band, and start something new. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had those were legitimate conversations we had, but because we saw that it was nearing the end.
The writing on the wall.
Yeah, it really was. And I'd moved to Indiana, and was kind of glad I did, because, like I said, we were an actively touring band, so that means every month we had some income coming in. When we stopped, it stopped. Yeah. And I lived in Fort Branch, Indiana, and for my skill set of what I do today, there's no opportunities for me up there. So basically, I just was doing everything I can to make a buck, and it was really hard, hard.
Yeah. Was it tough when you guys decided to call it quits? What was that? I know you just mentioned it being hard, but like mentally, emotionally, what was that like? Did you feel like there was a death of a part of you in a way? No,
well, yes and no. In a way, there was never the defining moment where we said we're done. We just stopped booking shows. We stopped doing stuff. The defining thing for me about that. I thought, well, cool. I'll finally get to do my solo record. I've got like 12 number one hits at Christian radio with Guardian, or 10 or whatever, and I'll be able to roll it in. And it's, you realize, man, like nobody would give me a deal. You know what I mean? And because things had changed so much, I was seen as the hairband guy. You know what I mean? And fortunately, though, Dave working at Forefront, he let me record a song called Extreme Days for a movie soundtrack they had. Like I made a demo for it, and we were going to have Toby rap on the breakdown, and Toby heard the song and said, "I want this song." So I still have a demo of it somewhere where I went to the studio and recorded the full thing, and it's a little more POD sounding than it is Toby's version, but dude, Toby did that, and I have a gold record from it because of
That's amazing. That's so cool.
So it had some things like that, but it's just funny. You would think, after hundreds of thousands of sales and years of experience, that would be a positive thing. But man, during that time, when you were branded as a hairband guy, you didn't get a shot. You did not.
That's so crazy that, it's sad because, it didn't give you an opportunity to fully creatively be who you were created to be per se, but it also probably makes you appreciate now, being able to hit those goals that you're hitting now, even more sweeter,
Dude, it's insane. It's crazy. And like I said, people with Kalamity Kills, people don't have Guardian as a reference point.
Yeah.
And, our core audience does, because, they follow my socials and whatnot. But like I do radio interviews with people. They have no idea my history. They just think this is some new band and everything. I tell them, no, I've been around for a while. You know what I mean? And but at the same time, you got like Jose Mangan on Sirius XM Octane. Every time he plays Kills, Jaime Rowe, formerly of the Christian band Guardian. You know what I mean? So he knows, and he says that. You know what I mean? But my thing about Guardian is like, dude, I love what we did.
Yeah.
I love the people we were when we did it.
Yeah.
I love my brothers in the band now, but we are different people than we were back then.
No, I get that.
You know what I mean? So to get in the room and try to recreate that thing, there would be a lot of factors. They could, from everything from personality changes to musical changes to recreate what people think, what they would want from Guardian. It would take a lot of work that people just, like I said, Tony, I talked to Tony, fairly recently, and I talked to Carl. Carl came to town. I saw him for 10 minutes at a parking lot and everything like that. And Dave has had a very public ordeal here lately, and I've been there as best I can for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like this. We don't really hang out anymore, but we're all friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
no, I get that. Let me ask you this. You kind of alluded to this, but how do you feel about the legacy and the impact overall that the band had? I know you kind of just mentioned it a little bit, but just overall looking back on it, just your viewpoint.
Dude, I absolutely love it. I'm really stoked at what we accomplished and what we did and the music we made. And there's nothing in our history that I'm embarrassed of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I take that back. I never liked the song Take Up Your Cross. I know people loved it. I always felt goofy singing it. Take up your cross. I always felt like I was singing on a children's show. And I was very vocal about that. And that was a big song for us. And I couldn't stand it.
Oh, wow. No. What Yeah, I was gonna say, well, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I just, I'm sure, like that's cool that you're fond of the majority of it, or the good portion of it. Let me ask you, what record and what song are you most proud of?
I can rattle that off with no problem. The Rain, absolutely.
Great song.
When I'm down and I'm cold and the blues are taking the toll, dude. It's
great.
It's part of my DNA, man. even with a sinus clogged nose, I can still sing that right now.
That's awesome, man. What record are you most proud of?
Fire and Love. Fire and Love.
Love it.
You know, beyond Fire and Love, I would say the second best would be Buzz.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I love.
I would say that. Those are my, and I'm not, when I say best, those are my favorites because best is
sure
up to interpretation.
I know they're like little children too, so you have a piece that it's hard to pick particular ones. My favorite, though, Fire and Love brings back so many good memories for me, and it has a sound that I get nostalgic for every once in a while. Yeah, and Buzz, I think about the excitement. We'd signed with Myrrh, and for the first time in our career, we actually had a little bit of money in our bank accounts for a change. Like That's not awesome. A lot, but a whole lot more than we did have. Yeah, and. But it was just kind of I was able to buy a car, things like that, and not worry about things for a season, I should say, before it all fell apart. No, I get that. I've got a lot of good and just memories of walking in that rehearsal and seeing Guardian guys in photos and everything, and then coming in rehearsal and their hair's not teased up and they're not in costume. I remember looking at Dave and said, "You have flat hair too." And everything, and Tony patted me on the back, goes, "No, we tease our hair up all the time." Just a squirrely kid. But that's awesome. So when you guys reunited and did Almost Home, what brought that on? What spawned that? What was that like recording that and getting back with the band?
We did a reunion round of dates in 2011 in Latin America, mostly in Argentina and some in Brazil, and we had added Jamie Perino, who's my partner in Kills, as a second guitar player. And we were doing these shows and still having ridiculously large crowds and everything. And we got to a point maybe we should try to do another record. And we did a Kickstarter. It got funded. And just to be transparent and honest, everybody was all gung-ho, hey, let's do this, but actually getting people to show up to make that record was like pulling teeth. Wow. So basically, if it wasn't for Perino, that record would not have seen the light of day at all, because he did the majority of the work on that thing. But I would come over and I would, he and I would write stuff, and I'd say in pecking order, Carl came in and did his drums. Dave would show up on occasion, so to speak, and get involved, but really, Tony was barely involved at all. He ended up mixing the record, and it was like, okay, look, we got a Kickstarter crowd that backed us.
You got to do it.
We've got, and we've been personally, been paid for this. We need to deliver. And I remember, causing a big stink in the band. I went on socials and announced, listen, if it doesn't come out by such and such date, you people need to complain to Kickstarter and demand. I said that, and it made people in the band mad. But it got it done. Wow. But the record itself, though, there are highlights. The song Almost Home is one of my favorite songs of all time of Guardian. Yeah. And there are things like Paranoia Kills that Perino and I wrote together that I think sounds like hints of what I'm doing now. But there's some really good stuff on that record. Once again, and I say this about Bottle Rocket sometime too, I think it's a great record. I don't know if it's necessarily a great Guardian record. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm proud of it. And if people really understood how much of a miracle that was to finish, they would view it differently and stuff. But it came out, and I remember looking at iTunes thinking, okay, I wonder if it's going to crack the top 100 for some reason. And not seeing it in the lower tier, then finally scrolling up and realized it was number 5.
That's amazing.
Yeah, once again, for an unsigned band, just came out of nowhere. And I remember at one point we had a management guy that was pitching it, and it was that Jimmy Buffett label had a label called Mailboat Records, and he had the new Def Leppard was released to it, and they were interested in picking up the record, and they did test marketing. And this is what, 2013. They did test marketing. They did, they passed on the record because Target and Walmart wouldn't carry it because we had not committed to a U.S. tour. And that's
so weird.
It was kind of wild, but there's some cool stuff on there. But it should have been a lot. It should have been a lot better experience than it was. And like I said, and that for me, showed how difficult it had been to put Guardian in the studio again after all those times. That's what I'm saying. Life has changed, personalities have changed.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And to be fair, it's not something I look forward to ever doing again.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And you might as well just at this point, it's you've got good memories, and you need to keep it that way for sure.
I do. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Calamity Kills. I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, and obviously it started as a self by yourself, and then you brought your friend in. Yeah. Let's talk about that concept of bringing that together, and then the self-titled record.
Yeah, well, once again, Jamie and I have just had, that was the good thing about, the Guardian Almost Home record stuff. Jamie and I really realized that we really like working with each other, and we continue to do so. And people don't know Perino, his background. Perino is a rock guitar player, but his history is like he was Taylor Swift's musical director for 2 years. Wow. And he was in Leanne Rimes' band for like 5 years. So he's played with all these like country heavyweights and whatnot, but he's a rock guy. That's awesome. And now he produces out of his home studio, and with Kills, he just, like I said, I started making the record. I did a Kickstarter campaign and hired him to do the record, and then Perino was just like really all in and stuff. And basically, the budget of the record, he almost personally matched it because he's like, man, let's do this. So he didn't make a penny off of it. You know what I mean? He put that money right back into the record.
He believed in it. Yeah. And
that's why I realized, man, I don't want to do this without you, and we work great together. Let's make this a 50-50 thing, and here we are. And the record, like I said, we specifically did not do a physical release at first to steer people towards digital. That was that metric. So it's like the Kickstarter backers could get the record, but there was like a 6-month window before anybody else could. And we still keep the physical CDs in a limited amount of availability and stuff, just to spur interest in the
sure.
Because I'm telling you, working in this side right now, where, like I said, we have a charting hit and everything like that. Like, if you don't have those metrics on your streaming and stuff like that, it could be the difference between a station in Roanoke, Virginia, playing you or not.
Yeah.
And everything like that. And if somebody's listening to their CD, those plays aren't registering.
No, so you're right.
It's a little bit of a game, and it's a little bit of just a game that's not fun. But I say this all the time, but the old way of doing music business does not work.
Sure.
So it's like, we haven't even played a live show yet, and people think like, well, you need to get out and build an audience. No, you don't, man, because like I'm telling you, the audience, you're going to waste your time. You could either be in a studio creating assets, which you could sell later on through publishing and make money off of it like it, or you can go play for 100 people in a city next to you that are going to forget about you the next week.
You're right.
And so I would rather build this thing up until the point where we do have an audience to play for, and instead of going to build an audience, go to reward an audience. You know what I mean? So we just do things backwards, man. But it works. It really does.
Yeah. Absolutely. You have to nowadays, especially, I mean, in the last 10, 15 years, I mean, it's different. Like it's completely different than what it was. And it's probably never going to be that way again.
Yeah.
You have the power now, which is, I think is, ultimately what, as an artist, I'm sure you've wanted from day one, and now you actually can do that. You can make a song and put it up within 5 minutes if you want.
Actually, I wish I could, if I had the skills to do that, but I'm still a limited musician. But if I actually played like an instrument fairly decent and had the engineering skills, dude, I'd probably release a song every week. I really would.
That's amazing.
But right now I do it, and you're like, what is that? Because I can't record for crap. So
yeah. Well, you just did a song with Aaron Gillespie from Under Oath. Let's talk about that. Love it, by the way. It sounds fantastic. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that song was a song I'd written about suicide prevention awareness, and a lot of people don't know about the 988 hotline. Mm-hmm. And like I said, people going through depressive episodes and whatnot, sometimes they don't want to expose themselves to their friends and family about that, and so, but they don't want to go through it alone. So knowing that there's a 988 hotline to somebody to counsel and available to help you, when you're feeling on the edge, I thought was important, and I wanted to put that in the title of the song and make it a chorus hook, and so we recorded that song. But Ray Luzier from Korn, who's played on quite a bit of the Kills stuff, and it's just become a good friend to us, and so he's just a really great guy. He was going to originally do it, but he had to leave to go to Europe or Australia or somewhere with Korn and couldn't do it. And I remember talking to Perino. I was like, okay, I don't want to hire like a Nashville like safe drummer, studio guy that's good. I want somebody that's going to have like, the energy of the track and everything. And for some reason, it popped in my mind that Aaron Gillespie moved to Spring Hill, which is the city right next to me. And I just thought, well, I don't really know how to get a hold of him and stuff. I have some mutual friends, I met him like once years ago. I just cold messaged him through Instagram, originally just asking him to play drums on the track. He was like, yeah, bub, I'll do it. Blah, blah, blah. We worked out the details. And then after he did that, I started thinking, well, Aaron's got a great voice. I wonder if we should ask him to do a feature. And we did. And, in fairness, it's a paid feature. He accepted the money, but still, It's like, he said yes. And he said, lyrically what it's about, he supported. So
that's awesome.
But we've got Aaron on the track. And the thing that was cool about both he and Ray, they both do, they bring themselves in when they play. I don't feel like we're dealing with a studio musician. I feel like we're dealing with somebody who's just invited themselves into the band for the next day.
That's awesome.
And he plays it like a band and everything, and I love it. So
that's cool.
Aaron, Aaron's got such a unique sounding voice and everything like that. I think he was perfect for it. And his drumming, he's energy incredible. In that track.
I know, he's nuts. He's nuts. Well, and it's cool too. I just thought of this. It's like you've got, you're from Guardian, he's from Under Oath. It's like two factions of the Christian rock world coming together. What an opportunity. And again, the song's fantastic. So that's so cool that even came to be. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. A lot of people, Aaron and all those guys have had, an interesting journey, but it's
absolutely. Yeah.
And you know what? It's funny, and I shouldn't probably. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say it. So like I remember telling Aaron, I've had my issues as well, but at the end of the day, I believe. Yeah. And he wrote back like, "Me too, brother."
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's all it is. We can work, and people, it's very important for some people. You need to believe like me.
I know, that's ridiculous.
And the thing is, and I can't deal with that. And, it's like, man, God loves his kids, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those guys are fantastic dudes too. Yeah. They have good hearts, and I've known quite a few of them for a while. So I definitely, it's just so funny how we in a society can say you got to do it this way, but the reality is, you just got to be yourself. Is what you got to be. Because
you ain't fooling God no matter what.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Yeah. Man, I know you can't predict the future, Jamie, but what does the future look like for you?
The immediate future is I'm going to blow my nose and take a shower so I can get the sinus crap out of my stuff. But no, man, at this point, this next year with Kalamity Kills, we're just going to go for it. We're going to, every opportunity we have that's going to be significant and a risk, we're going to go for it. If it means more radio promotion, if it means, a publicity blitz of sorts, we're just going to go for it to let people know that we're here.
Yeah.
And people, and that's all we can do, because we can't make anybody like our music. We can't, you can't, Steve Taylor said it great and stuff. You can't buy a radio hit, but a radio hit's going to cost you a lot of money.
Wow. Wow.
It's like, as long as we can and stuff, we're going to continue down the radio course and everything like that. We're just trying to get people to discover our music. And then if they stick around, that's what we want. If they don't, we can't control that. So, but I've got no shortage of music, and and Jamie and I write together really well. And we added Julia and Rob from the band Foxy's here in Nashville. The Foxy's, they're part of our live lineup now. So we're going to start rehearsing with them here in the next few weeks, and we'll be playing some live shows. But like I said, we're not going to be that dumb. Let's go play a week of shows in Nebraska away from home.
No, I get it.
But at that point, it does not make sense in this market.
Yeah, no, totally. Jamie, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. Super honored, man, to have you on and just kind of talk shop, and just really cool to hear your perspective on your past and, of course, your future. So I really appreciate you coming on.
I embrace all of it, man. Life has been a teacher for me, and there have been seasons in my life, man, where I've just, been open and felt God's presence in my life and wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And there's been parts where I feel like, Father, why have thou forsaken me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I literally, and all of it makes me who I am today. Like I said, I'm in Columbia, Tennessee. I'm in a home I love with a woman who I just love more than life itself. My wife, Amber. We just have a great life together. I'm thankful for much. And so, music is a part of my life, but the real important stuff has nothing to do with music for me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm thankful for God's grace. I wake up with, and this is something great I've learned from Jamie Perrineau, is to just have a position of gratitude in life.
Absolutely.
So I wake up every day and thank God.
Absolutely, man.
Thank God every day. So
awesome. Well, Jaime, I really appreciate your time. It's been so cool to talk to you. And if I'm up that way, I'll hit you up and get a drink together. Hey, thank you to the listener for tuning in again and again. I really appreciate it. So honored to have you listen and tag along. So thank you. If you'd like to add me on Instagram and Facebook at The Rumors Are True Cast. If you'd like to like and subscribe, you know the drill. So thank you guys for all the kind words and messages. It does not go unnoticed. So thank you again. I'd also like to thank Jaime Rowe. So honored to have you on. Man, thank you so much for just bringing me down memory lane, and just really appreciate all the music you've done over the years and then what you've got in the future as well. So thank you again, Jaime Rowe, for your time. Got some incredible artists on the horizon, guys, and you know it. Nostalgia is still a hell of a drug. The podcast is produced by Wesley Hill, artwork by Jared Chase Bowser, and music by Brian Jaron. This episode is dedicated to the memory of my dear friend, producer, and man of many talents, Brian Jaron.